I seeded this character very early, very deliberately from the very beginning. So I'd have some options later on. It wouldn't just be like, oh, 10 books in, let's just all of a sudden put a grandfather that's interesting in World War II so that I can go back and write about that type of a thing. So I wanted to make sure that it was part of the story and it informed the character of James Reese today in contemporary times. But then it would allow me to go back and revisit those because we're all, you're all influenced by our life experiences and the life experiences of those who helped raise us. And one of those other options that I had with the Hastings family and then Reese, father, grandfather, it just made sense to go to Vietnam because I had talked about it so much in a previous book, Only the Dead. So I kind of set it up in that book. And then now I get to dive into it and give him a whole book, beginning, middle, end, on his own. So just the timing just seemed right.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Carrie Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills.
Jack is back. It is always a pleasure to have Jack Carr back on Veteran Made. This year, we are talking about Cry Havoc, his latest novel in the Terminalist series featuring James Reese's dad, Tom Reese, back in the Vietnam era. And we also touch a little bit on the Terminalist Dark Wolf, the prequel series running on Amazon Prime right now.
Welcome. This is Veteran Made.
Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by Go Pills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
All right. Good morning from the great state of Ohio for me. Good afternoon from Morocco, from the set of The Terminal List Season 2. Jack Carr, welcome back to Veteran Made.
Yeah, man.
You want to call it? It's like Season 2, Season 3, because Dark Wolf is a prequel. Is that how you guys are viewing it, as Season 3?
It's no, Season 2 for sure. They're separate shows when it comes to the business side or whatever, on the Amazon side of the house. So separate series. But so this will be, I think this is, I don't know if this is, I keep meaning to ask someone, because originally it was the Terminalist True Believer, and then I keep seeing it references just Terminalist Season 2. So I need to really find out what's going on with the second season, but it's based on True Believer, second book.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. Is True Believer going to be the subtitle, or is it going to be the Terminalist True Believer for marketing purposes, or is it just going to be True Believer?
Last I heard it was the Terminalist True Believer, but then I haven't seen it referenced like that in a while. So I don't know. Sometimes things change, and I'm running around like a crazy person all the time, and don't get I might not be the most up to date. So it might have changed depending on some data or algorithm or something. Who knows? But certainly based on True Believer, and about to finish it up. And we've been filming this thing since February or March, can't quite remember, but been in South Africa, Toronto, and Morocco for this one. So it's looking really good. Just watched the first and second episode. I watched the second one last night, and it's looking good. Just early cuts, called producer's cuts, and check those. Then we'll keep editing from there. But it's looking so good. It's looking awesome.
That's all. With your writing schedule and just schedule in general, how much of this season have you been on set for?
Quite a bit. Twice to Toronto, twice to Morocco, and once to South Africa. So I missed the Cape Town part where we did a lot of the sailing side of it. So I had to come back and keep writing. I was editing actually maybe still writing that. Anyway, with the writing schedule, I couldn't be in Cape Town, unfortunately. So I'll have to go back there for make an excuse to go back there another time. But yeah, I was on the set quite a bit, and just so cool to see these things come together. But I'm so lucky we have such an incredible team, and everyone reminds me of that who has worked on so many different Hollywood sets. They always come up and tell me just how fortunate they feel to be on this one, just because that essentially because of that leadership team, and really makes everybody feel just at home and comfortable and like a family, because you're filming these things for like 6, 7, 8 months. And that doesn't even account for what went into everything on the front side, doing the scripts, and then what's going to happen here on the back side, doing all the editing, and then the marketing and the lead up to drop. So during that time frame, people are going to have kids, get married, have divorces, maybe lose loved ones. I mean, it's like a life happens during that time frame. And Dave DiGilio, the showrunner, and Chris Pratt, of course, and Antoine Fuqua, and everybody just really makes this set feel like a family, because it is. And so we really try to take care of each other.
That's what I got to imagine. That's what's cool about jumping into a series that's based on a series of books, rather than, hey, let's make it to the next season and then to the next season, and try to kind of write it as we go. Not that you guys aren't writing, obviously, in the writer's room for the scripts, but there's this book series. So, hey, if this continues to go well, like, we're going to be in it together over the course of several years.
Yeah, you have a foundation. I have another project in Hollywood, and who knows, it might never happen. But it's based on like an idea, a treatment, essentially a executive summary. It's more like a mood board so there's visually and all, has visuals in there and all that stuff. And who knows if that ever happens, like I said. But what I like about having the books is that, hey, there's something pure that was as good as I could get it at the time. And it's going to morph to tell the story through a visual medium, rather than this other project that I have that's just the idea, essentially like what I would start out with for a novel, like a title, a theme, executive summary, an outline, and then you're turning it over to like other people that then now it morphs. Instead of handing a book over, which is like, hey, it's the best I could do at the time, here you go, and knowing that it's going to morph. It's kind of a different thing when you just hand the outline side over for a whole different project, knowing that that's going to morph, because you don't have your pure thing that you did the best you could do, if that makes sense. Right. So point being with this, having the series of books and kind of having a little roadmap, even though we know that the books are going to shift because of the medium through which the story is being told on screen. It's cool to have that.
Yeah, might be an odd comparison because the genres are different, but like, as they're rebooting Harry Potter at HBO right now as a TV series, that series has had 25 plus years of kind of fandom, and then those movies. But you wrote these books very much with the fans in mind. So there's not just, hey, here's the best that I can do as Jack, the author, and now writer on the show and EP on the show, but also like, there's a very strong fan base here that loves these books, loves these stories, loves these characters. And so we have to be authentic to not just what I wrote, but also what they love.
Yeah, I mean, that's a part of it, and it's also kind of, every time I can talk about it, I talk about the differences. Like, it's not a direct translation. You're not taking the dialogue from the book and moving it over and dropping it into the exact location in this TV show, because it's just a different way to tell a story. I can have all sorts of exposition. I can have what characters are thinking. We have to tell the story with like a look, from somebody. So it's a different thing. But I do love having like writing, which is just me, and then the screenwriting, which is a huge team, and then notes from the top of Amazon all the way back down that need to be addressed. So it's a very different type of a thing, but I like having a foot in both worlds now, and hopefully one makes me better at the other. Yeah,
we'll talk a little bit more TV at the end, but we are here talking about Cry Havoc. This episode will go live the week before it drops. Great book. I absolutely love it. You wrote something in the preface and talked about intentionally incorporating characters into the narratives that would allow you to explore multiple generations in the Reese and Hastings family lineages. So general question about world building, and then specific question, did you choose to go back to Tom's story at this particular point in the series, the sort of main continuity of the Terminal List? Like, how did you choose when to go write this novel, instead of this next book being the Reese character?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about it for a while. I seeded this character very early, just like I did with the Hastings family. I have 3 generations there, 3 generations on the Reese side that I could go back to. So I did that very deliberately. from the very beginning, so I'd have some options later on. It wouldn't just be like, oh, 10 books in, let's just all of a sudden put a grandfather that's interesting in World War II so that I can go back and write about that type of a thing. So I wanted to make sure that it was part of the story and it informed the character of James Reese today in contemporary times. But then it would allow me, people would ask, oh, that's really interesting. Daddy was in the OSS, or that's really interesting. I never heard about this. What happened in Rhodesia in the 60s? Like that sort of a thing. And I can go back and revisit those, but it wouldn't just be like out of nowhere. And also I think it does help inform the James Reese character. So, because we're all, you're all influenced by our life experiences and the life experiences of those who helped raise us. So that it all makes sense. But I decided to do it at this point because the character arc for James Reese, where I left him after Red Sky Morning, it just seemed like this was an appropriate time to give him a little breather, because I can really only do the one book a year. Maybe at some point when the kids are older, I'll be able to do it too. But right now it's just the one for me. I mean, it'd be great if I could do two, but not quite yet. I can do the nonfiction, I can do the co-written stuff, like with James Scott, who's so amazing, like Untargeted. So I can do that, but one that's just me is that's one a year. So it made sense at this point after Red Sky Morning to go back. And one of those other options that I had with the Hastings family and then Reese father, grandfather, it just made sense to go to Vietnam because I had talked about it so much in a previous book, Only the Dead. So I kind of set it up in that book, and then now I get to dive into it and give him a whole book, beginning, middle, end, on his own. So just the timing just seemed right.
So as you were writing the contemporary series and Only the Dead, how much was there for you, or how much is there for you kind of in your Bible and your notes that you have versus once you dove into this, how much did you have to create?
I had to create most all of it because now you're thinking of it in terms of this story arc that takes place, in this case, over three parts, prologue and epilogue, also in 1968. So I talked about things more generally. Some things I gave specific dates to, but I hadn't really sketched out even for myself, even if it wasn't mentioned in the books. Like, when did Tom Reese join the Navy? How old was he? How many deployments did he do to Vietnam? When did he join the CIA? Like all of that I didn't have. I left it very general, and I also left it very general for the other characters that I might explore at some point, just so that I wouldn't have to do a full-on year of research in order to get like a one-page bio. It's more general so that I can now, if I go to those in the future, then I dive in and get into those specifics, really just from a time management standpoint. But I knew he was MACV-SOG. I knew he was had a touch point there. I knew he was a SEAL. I knew that he eventually went to the CIA and the Phoenix program. But other than that, the specifics weren't really there. Like what made him who he is. That's what I get to go into in this story. And Cry Havoc. It took a lot more time, energy, and effort than I thought, because it was supposed to come out in June, and I just missed deadline after deadline because it's. I thought I knew a lot about Vietnam, and I thought this one, because I had seeded it, like we just talked about in previous novels, that I wasn't be making it up out of whole cloth, and so I thought, this will be a lot faster. And then as soon as I got into it, I realized that every single character has to look at a problem set or have a perspective on something through the lens of 1968. And let's say if they're 20-year-old SEAL, a 35-year-old CIA guy, a 65-year-old French doctor, a 70-year-old GRU Soviet intelligence guy. They all have life experiences up to that point in their lives, but I can't have the benefit of hindsight. I can't have 50 plus years of hindsight in their character looking at these problem sets. It has to be their life experience up until 1968. So I did some deep dives into the backgrounds, kind of to set that up, to show like the why these characters looking at these different events through that gives them their own perspective because of what they lived through. So it took a lot more time than I thought. And I wanted to get it right for people who had lived through the 60s. Also, I wanted to try to really capture that feel, especially for the guys who went to Vietnam. I really wanted to get those details right so it wouldn't take them out of the story. And I wanted to do that as a way to honor those guys. So it's so that just took a lot more time than I thought. And then you're also dealing with 50 plus year old memories on things, and like, oh wait, where this was and that was and what exactly you carried and how and all of that sort of thing. So you're working through that as well. So but it was a pure joy. It just took a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, it reads like thriller plus historical fiction, right? Kind of you kind of, we talked about it with Targeted Beirut, right? You blended historical nonfiction with those thriller aspects, and here you're blending thriller with historical fiction. How did your writing adjust specifically based on everything you were just saying?
Yeah, it was more of, hey, how do you keep the story moving and not all of a sudden just throw a paragraph in that reads like a history book? Like, how do you tie these different events to something that's personal to one of the characters, so it's still through a certain character's POV, through their perspective, their point of view. So that's the so that was different this time around, because in a contemporary thriller, I don't have to really worry so much about not taking things that I know because I've already lived something, or we have all these years of study to go to kind of rely upon. Instead, no, you have to go back and put yourself in those shoes. So yeah, that part took a tiny bit of adjustment, but it was just more realizing that, okay, that's how what I have to do, and then just doing it rather than just saying, hey, they're listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival and they're in Vietnam, and then write the rest of it just like a contemporary thriller. Like, that was going to be a no-go. And I think that's the easy route, of course, but I've never taken the easy route on anything, so I wasn't about to do it here. But yeah, I'll be recovering from this one for a while. This took a lot of late nights, a lot, not just late nights, but all-nighters. And of course, I'm working constantly, and feel bad. My family has to deal with that, and when I think something's going to be done, and then it takes 3-4 more months, and so that part's tough. But in the end, it's all about honoring that reader by honoring the story and not really worrying about anything else. Just doing the best job I can do in that story, because people are going to trust me with that time they're never going to get back. So I'm not just going to say, hey, this group of SEALs is listening to Creedence Clearwater and then make everything else kind of normal. That wasn't gonna do it for me.
Yeah, it was interesting for me to be reading Cry Havoc while watching Dark Wolf. My wife and I just caught up on episode, as of us recording this, episode 5 last night, for episode 6 here in a couple of days. And you've talked about the difference between writing these books and it's all just you, and then writing and EPing the series where it's collaborative. So for you to be telling Tom's backstory based on your decisions, and then to be working with Taylor, who is the one who really drove the backstory for Ben, what was that? What was that like for you to have this that you created, and then to work with Taylor to have him kind of help say, hey, here's how we can actually tell Ben's backstory, and you're jumping back and forth between collaborating with him and the rest of the team, and then just diving in yourself on Cry Havoc?
Yeah, I mean, there's overlap there, but not so much, because I was writing Red Sky Morning when we're writing and filming Dark Wolf, and then I am writing Cry Havoc when we are essentially editing Dark Wolf and going into the marketing side, and then going into True Believer episodes as well. So I write the first episode of True Believer with the showrunner. So it's more that I was working on True Believer TV show at the same time that I was writing this. And so but there is some overlap there, because there's just so much going on. And yeah, having two essentially prequels coming out around the same time, because for the reader or the viewer, they line up as like the same time. But as I'm writing them, not as much, just because of how long it takes to get something published and how long it takes to get something filmed and through the editing process and onto a streaming service. But it is interesting to have them coming out at the same time, being both prequels, and that's kind of fun, because you can talk about having one contemporary thriller where you're going back 7 years, and then to set up characters that everyone knows already, and then going back 50 plus years to write essentially historical fiction about the Vietnam War, and something that I thought was complete fiction when I started with this encryption device and the USS Pueblo and all that stuff. And then as I did more research and continue writing, I realized that it might not be so far away from the truth. It's just crazy.
Yeah. What was it like jumping to Dark Wolf for a second? What was it like to collaborate with someone on a story? You mentioned it before, right? Like, as you read The Terminal List and as you watch the first season of The Terminal List, it feels kind of cut and dry to the reader that, hey, Ben made these decisions. I don't like those decisions. James didn't like those decisions. It feels kind of cut and dry, but we know he operates in this clandestine world that isn't. And then now he says, hey, what if we what if we grade up a little bit and tell this story? What was it like for you to collaborate with him and David and the others to say, all right, let's open this up and explore why he got here?
Yeah, no, it was fantastic, but that's something that I wish I'd done better in the book, is bring some humanity to Ben's character, especially at the end when you get a little bit of the why. The book that's one thing I would definitely go back and change, because in the writer's room, how Ben's character ends up was way better. And then when we got closer to that filming that scene, we dove in again because of everything we learned throughout that season, and Chris's and Taylor's relationship on screen as Ben and Reese. It all played into how that final scene in the terminal list turned out. We were making edits on that up until the last second, and then Taylor brings what he brings to it. Which is just so much empathy and humanity. And I just wish I'd had one of those why lines of that Taylor brings to it, and that we brought to it in the writer's room of why he would do this and have these teammates die with their boots on rather than in a hospital bed, in excruciatingly pain deaths from these tumors. That would give would have just given a little bit more depth to that character in the book that wasn't there. So once again, yeah, learning, always learning, always improving, always trying to evolve. This book's hopefully better than the last one, and the next one that I'm working on right now will be better than this one. That's always the goal. Same thing with the shows. But yeah, when Chris called and said, hey, I think we should do a Ben spinoff, an origin story, of course the answer is yes, let's do it. And then Taylor was all in, and so we all got together. Me, Dave DiGilio, Jared Shaw, and Max Adams got together and started putting together this outline for that we've then pitched to Amazon. And that was in October, end of October of 2022. So right after the show came out, just a couple months. So that part was fast. Then the deal making starts. That took us into January. And then a writer's room starts up, and you have to interview new writers. You have some that you hold on to, others that go after other projects. And then kicked off that writer's room. And then that's when the writer's strike happened. And that took 7 months. And then there was an actor strike on the end of that. And so really, even though that was like 8 months, that really put us behind by a year, just of how things compounded. So really, Dark Wolf should have come out without the writer's strike, would have come out last summer. And True Believer, that we're finishing up filming now, should have come out this summer, but the writer's strike put us behind by a full year.
Yeah, like you said, life happens. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? But like these things, you just have to adapt to your new operating environment, right?
What can you do? What can you do? Got to roll with it.
Yeah. So back to the novel side, like how do those changes that were made, and you said it's something you wish you would have done better. How does working on the television show, does that affect the way that you're now writing the novels? Not necessarily from a page to screen, but from a humanity standpoint, from a character development standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. Do you think about any of that as you're writing the novel, saying, hey, maybe I should have done this with Ben's character, so how can I do something similar with these characters as I'm writing the novels? Or do you just still keep them pretty separate?
Yeah, no, I keep them fairly separate, but there is certainly unintentional bleed over, just because I'm learning all the time and evolving all the time, hoping to get better all the time. So the first book that people would be able to see how the screenwriting and TV shows influenced the books would be with In the Blood, because up to we were filming, we were a couple months into filming The Terminal List when my fourth book came out, The Devil's Hand, and so then I'm really into writing In the Blood, and that's the one that people could see if there is a difference or an influence of the TV show in the books. It would start with book 5, and I can see it in there more so with like the flashbacks and like the lessons and the wisdom from James's father. So that stuff certainly came over from the TV show, and some stuff that was in script that didn't make it onto screen even. So yeah, there's definitely some bleed over there.
I love it. Cool. Why don't I be respectful of your time? Just a couple of things I want to say on the podcast side on Danger Close. I loved the episode with John Daly about Tough Rugged Bastards. He's a friend, and he's been on this podcast. So I really enjoyed listening to you two discuss that. And then I called him after it. I was like, hey man, I just listened to this. It was great. So it was super fun for those worlds to bleed over.
Nice. What a great guy. Yeah. Crazy to reunite.
Yeah, super fun. Yeah, it was fun to listen to you guys talk about being being in some of the same places, not necessarily knowing who each other were, who else was operating there and doing all these different things. And then to listen to that episode, it was kind of like listening to the history unfold a little bit as you guys were talking and kind of discovering these things.
Yeah.
I've had that happen a couple of times. Like in the Air Force, I loaded bombs on fighter jets. So a ton of fun little history stuff in this about the Vietnam era jets that I did not work on, obviously in the GWAT, but fun to hear that. But I've had that happen before where I've had JTACs on the show, and I'm listening to them talk about some old stories, and I'm like, hey, I may have loaded that. I may have loaded that bomb. I may have been. It's really fun when that happens in this kind of contemporary time where we all get together over Zoom and Skype and all these different things and talk about these times.
Yeah, it's wild. So I had Alex Berenson on, who writes a series of thrillers, but back in 2004, I think he was with the New York Times. Anyway, he was writing at the time as a journalist, and we were in Najaf at the same time, and so we discovered that on the podcast as we were talking. So it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, super fun when those things collide like that. All right, so this is going to go live the week before the book comes out. Where can folks find it? Where can folks plan to come see you? I know that you do great work with local bookstores. I actually just did an event for the podcast here for a local author here in Columbus, Ohio, at our local bookstore that just opened up a year ago. And he and I were talking to the owner, and she was just like floored at how well the store is doing. And I know that it seems like a lot of people aren't reading, and a lot of people aren't reading physical copies of books anymore, but we were talking about how people are. And when you open up these local bookstores, people come and buy books and come for these events. So love what you're doing there too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try to do this something where people can only get a certain edition through local independent bookstores. So I shoot through the title page. Been doing that for a few years. Sign it, so people can only get those through the local independent bookstores. They can link to from my website, just to kind of a way to support them. And even though it takes like an extra step, versus Amazon Easy Button, you can't get a shot through title page signed from Amazon. So try to do what I can to support those independent bookstores. But yeah, I'll be on tour for about 10, 11 days, I think, in there, starting on the 5th, kicking it off at Poison Pen with David Morrell, who created Rambo back in 1972 with First Blood. So we're going to do an event together, which is a huge honor for me. We kicked that off in Scottsdale, and then I blast off from there across the country. So yeah, doing that in October, and then back to writing.
Yeah, well, I'll look at the schedule. We might pop back over to Indianapolis and see you again for this one, like we did last year. We'll see what the schedule allows here with our newborn and on all the stuff that we've got going on this side too. So, but yeah, love that you do that. Love that you support these libraries and these bookstores. So jackcarrusa.com, I believe, is where everybody can.
Jackcar.com is the website, and then Jack Carr USA is all the socials.
That's right. All right, we'll link and tag and all that good stuff. Jack, to end each episode, as you know, I ask an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've talked about today. Jack, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
Oh man, yeah. Well, mine, like so many other people's, is the assassination of Charlie Kirk last week. Hardly been able to think about anything else, and so tough. Put some thoughts together and put them out there on the socials there recently, but it's just so tough, so devastating for the country. So praying hard. So that's in my heart and soul right now, is praying for the family, and also praying for our nation as we move forward here. So just such an emotional time. So yeah, people can check out some more thoughts. That's why I'm an author, not a public speaker, so I can put my thoughts into writing rather than talk about them, I guess.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I'm not going to run an episode this week for that. Just going to release a short little bit about that. I was traveling for work when it happened and was away from my wife and kids, as you are right now. And these things happen. And when these things happen, I just wanted to hug them, and I couldn't because I wasn't there. And I got home and was able to do that. And it was very emotional on the personal side as a husband and as a father. As I know you share those titles as well. And just as an American, it's we need to come together.
Yeah, it's tough. So just praying hard.
Yes, sir. All right, Jack, appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy. Appreciate the books and the TV show. Looking forward to putting this out.
Thanks so much, man. You take care. Hope I'll see you soon.
We'll see you.
Take care.
Bye.